Shane Barley. I came to Derby in 1974 and I grew up in Derby, went to school here. And then I went away to work in London. London, I thought, was a place of diversity, multiculturalism, lots of people from around the world. I've just come back to Derby to live again here, and I've found that Derby is even more multicultural, even more diverse. Normanton has always been bustling. When I was growing up here in the 70s, this used to be a mainly predominantly Pakistani Indian community. But now here, there are people from all over the world. There are over 120 different languages spoken in local schools. Even looking at this new signage, the signage here says Slovenian, Polish, Latvian, Bulgarian, Russian and Asian. Asian is now less of a majority, more of an Eastern European feel to this. So really, my experience with Derby, what I'm trying to do is capture people's views from the 50s, 60s, 70s and to present day. And looking at how they sort of made the adjustment when they first came to this country. Changes are huge. Derby is great in that, you know, it's a lot of integration, a lot of integration between communities. And looking at what's going on here is still the same. Although there seems to be a slight tension between new communities and the old communities. But I think those are just basically, you know, early settling, takes time to settle down. I thought London was very diverse, but Derby, Normanton, is a place, really. Yeah, I'm looking through these press cuttings. There are very few of them. They go back to 1983, but what I'm looking at is to look at the change in attitudes when political correctness first came into being for Derby. Lots of issues, tensions and so on. And the council and government had to put some policies in place. And I'm just sort of trying to trace back as to when that started. There's a big policy by the council, local council, gypsies are not allowed in Derby. So now looking at paper cuttings and so on, you can see that the attitudes have changed. Gypsies are more welcome, they have sites they're catered for.
My father was a Polish person who came from Eastern Europe in a place called Jasło in southern Poland. He was one of the victims of the war, couldn't go back home, and then fled to the Rhine, and where he joined the British Army on the Rhine, and then eventually came here to England to the transit camp that they had.
My wife, she was telephonist in Kenya. When she came over here, she couldn't get a job. One day she applied in a factory, and on the phone she was told that job is ready, you come down there. But when she went there, unfortunately she was wearing a sari. On the gate only she was told that, oh sorry, that job is filled. And she was really disappointed, and she was going to take up this case with the CRE to fight against racism or discrimination. But I stopped her. I said, no, you are new here. It's not easy to adjust here. But then we formed this multicultural group also. We started in this room. I have done number of meetings from all churches, Muslims, Sikhs.
So I was lucky to get a job. My first job was in a biscuit factory, which I never ever done labor work, so that I didn't know what to do, you know. So, excuse me. So then I was a bit lucky at that time. Just I worked there only for 3 months, and then a friend of mine, he works with the post office. So the post office job came. So I, took the exam and I passed it. I started as a postman and I retired as a manager in post office.
Really, as somebody that's come from the background of a refugee and understanding, I then had a good insight in what it's like to be what I would call a stranger in a strange land. And the discrimination that does take place, which is far worse for black or Asian people than it is for people of our ilk But really, at the end of the day, certainly I had an understanding, and a very, very deep understanding. And I developed that with the work I started to do.
Well, it's been imposed upon them in terms of people's needs and wants. People just can't be abused, just take intolerance. They have to sort of live as equal citizens in this country, and that's what's coming through the generations. The policies have changed, people's attitudes have changed, clothing has changed, food's changed. When I first came in '74, very few ethnic shops, very few, different things from around the world. But now you look at it, it's just fusion all over, and it's just good for everything.
1964, at that time there was no entertainment in Derby apart from they used to have a film once a month. There was only 2 cinemas at that time, if I remember right, and which is there, all demolished now. And we are the one who started Indian Culture Society in Derby in 1965, right? So that was the first entertainment in Derby on a regular basis,
So I had visited, I think, 1978, Bombay. And in Bombay I saw one place, and where I could find a Gurdwara, mosque, temple, and a church, all together. They were practicing their religion. So I told in the committee that when they can work together, why we can't work here? So in the end we decided, okay, we won't establish different churches or mandir or any gurdwaras. We'll have one building which will serve the purpose of when Christmas comes, it will be for the Christians. When Diwali comes, for the Hindus. When Vaisakhi comes, it's for the Sikhs. So we raised £1.5 million and we built it, and it's working. It's working internationally. It makes me very, very proud that we have achieved something.
1989, I joined the Racial Equality Council as their Racial Equality Officer for Complainant Aid and Employment, and I worked there altogether until 2007. I left in 2007. During that period of time, I got the MBE for work and helping putting young people back into employment, involved in a variety of things.
Migrants put a lot of effort into the economy, which other people would not have worked in. There's lots of money been made for the community. Interestingly, ethnics didn't really live on social security when they first came. In the early days, 50s, 60s, 70s. They didn't go to the dole queues. They, really worked whatever jobs they had. They just took it and worked really hard. Now it seems to be a bit much easier, but the fact is, migrants paved their way through history.
As far as the children is concerned, they are educated in this country. Obviously, their views are, you can see, obviously bound to be different from us, because their background is different. Their culture is different. They are brought up in a different culture. Obviously, they will have their new ideas, and some are very good. Some are not very good, you see. But still, as far as they look after the family, they respect the family, I think there's nothing wrong. It's only when they say that, no, we won't want to see my mother, They see only mother in once a year, that's at Christmas time. That's no good, It's no good to anybody. Right? That's the way. Culture, we should change. I think even the British society feel now, that we should have a joint family system. It doesn't really matter. You have to sit all in one room, all the time. But you should have a family tie, You should have to respect each other, I think that's better.
There is always conflict as well. As one community pulls itself up and gets out of the mire and seems to set itself up, become aspirations of property owning and developing the businesses and everything else, the new communities seem to be exploited by the ones that have made it. So it's always interesting for me, one of the conflicts that I often have is when I see a landlord, for example, who's overcharging on rents or rates, and 20 years ago they were the same people who were coming to me asking me to have support and help. And that's the contradiction, and it's understanding that contradiction that people do start to achieve. They become more conservative. They don't recognise the needs of new communities that are coming. And there you have, at the end of the day, that conflict that certainly emerges. And you can see it very much in the rise of organisations like the BMP, English Defence League, and organisations like that, who put forward this mythos of, England for the English. Well, point out who are English these days. It is a real question, to be honest. But we've also got to recognise that some communities, in some areas, like in the outer areas like Ilkeston and outside of Derby, who've suffered appallingly with a loss of industry, heavy industry like the mining industry closing, and they've been left behind. And so there is an uneven development in one sense.
These old people here, how they suffer, how the parents suffer, there is a problem. So that problem can be sorted out if we work together as a family, as a society, good society. So we can gain a lot of things, but with the less cost, So that's the way. That's my personal feeling, that we should live nicely, peacefully, and we should live and let other people live, happily.
Needing to have a real understanding of what drives people in that sense, and what brings the aspirations of people coming to a new country, want to go get a good job, get a house, get a car, have good education and everything else. All those things are very, very important. But I do think they should not be at the expense of anybody else. There has to be a unity in that sense that can be created, where people try and work together. And one of the things that EMAC very much always works towards is equal cooperation, people working together for the benefits of all, not just for one or two.